Imagine waking up exactly 1 year from today. You look around, and your reality is completely different. Your health is solid, your finances are stable, and your relationships are deeper than they've ever been. Every January, millions of people try to force this exact scenario into existence. They buy planners, write down massive goals, and try to change their entire lives through a sudden, intense burst of motivation. But that surge of energy fades within weeks. Motivation is an unpredictable emotion. Some days you have it, most days you don't. Your brain, however, is wired to search for predictable routines because those routines reduce mental effort. Relying on how you feel on any given morning is a formula with a guaranteed failure rate. To actually build that future reality, you have to abandon emotional willpower entirely and start with a cold, systemic audit of your life right now. We call this the macro audit. You cannot chart a course to a new identity without first brutally diagnosing your current baseline. To do this, we use a framework called the Wheel of Life. This diagram takes your entire existence and divides it into 3 primary domains: work, health, and relationships. Each of those domains is broken down further into specific subcategories. Under work, you have mission, money, and growth. Health becomes body, mind, and soul. And relationship splits into romance, family, and brotherhood. For each of these 9 sections, you rate your current alignment on a scale of 0 to 10. You are measuring the exact gap between the habits you practice today and the ambitions you have for the future. Seeing this radar chart takes a vague feeling of dissatisfaction and turns it into hard data. You are no longer guessing what feels off. You have highly specific areas that require a systemic intervention. With your baseline established, you isolate just one low-scoring area to focus your attention on. Next, you apply the 12-month celebration technique. Imagine sitting down with a friend exactly a year from today. You are celebrating a single, highly specific victory in that weak area of your life. It is a physiological necessity to boil your ambitions down to just one target per category. If you try to fix 5 things at once, your brain becomes overwhelmed by competing priorities and simply shuts down. But setting that single goal isn't enough. You have to frame it around a psychological concept called an identity shift. Instead of focusing on the outcome, like losing 20 pounds, you ask yourself, what kind of person does this naturally? The goal itself will rarely change your behavior, but when you assume the identity of a man who values daily movement, the actions required to stay fit begin to feel automatic rather than forced. Maintaining that new identity against the friction of daily temptation requires a shift in tactics. Compounding tiny 1% daily improvements will always outperform a massive, short-lived burst of effort. And the easiest way to guarantee small improvements is recognizing that your physical surroundings dictate your behavior far more powerfully than your own determination. If you remove unhealthy food from your kitchen entirely, or leave your smartphone in another room during family time, you bypass your brain's need to exercise self-control. You don't have to resist temptation if the temptation isn't there. This applies to your internal environment as well. The stories you tell yourself quietly determine whether a failure is interpreted as a permanent character flaw or simply a temporary, useful lesson. Waiting for perfect conditions or perfect equipment or perfect timing traps you. It halts the compounding momentum that comes from consistent, imperfect action. True discipline is not fighting a constant, exhausting battle against friction. It is strategically designing both your external and internal environments so that the right choices become the path of least resistance. To funnel this yearly strategy down to a daily reality, we have to look at micro-execution. A yearly goal means nothing if it isn't mapped onto a weekly calendar. This visualizes the ideal week system. You start with a blank calendar and block out the strict, non-negotiable anchors: the hours you sleep, your career obligations, and your family commitments. Once those essentials are mapped, the math becomes very clear. You see exactly how little discretionary time actually remains in an ordinary week. If you want to achieve that single victory we talked about for your 12-month celebration, the specific actions required to reach it must be explicitly scheduled into these remaining gaps. If a new ambition physically cannot fit into this calendar, you have to downgrade, delay, or simply abandon it. Protecting your attention and allowing for proper recovery is non-negotiable. Time itself changes no one. Extraordinary transformations are simply the result of an engineered, scheduled week executed with relentless, ordinary consistency.